I'm an SEC regulated financial advisor, and I specialize in 1031 exchanges and helping investors better understand tax-deferred strategies within the real estate world. And there's a real estate SEC, security called a Delaware Statutory Trust, a DST for short. And that's what we're really here to talk about today. But before we get into that, just to make sure we're on the same page, right? 1031 exchanges has been in the tax code for over 100 years. And it's the most powerful way to build wealth in real estate. And if you're an agent that is, you know what 1031 exchanges are, but you're not that well versed, you're missing out, quite frankly, because the richest investors, they're not just selling and buying primary residence, they own 5 to 10 plus investment property, right? The richest people own real estate, or they own their business. And 1031 exchanges is a very powerful way to help communicate the value that you can bring to your investors and to your clients and to your prospects, right? Just to make sure that everybody understands the 1031, right? If you own investment property, not primary residence, but investment property, and there's a capital gain in that property, you can sell that property and avoid state, federal, and depreciation recapture tax, all of which adds up to about 40% off the top, unless you declare a 1031 exchange and you buy another investment property of equal or greater value. So if you're selling $1 million property, you got to exchange into $1 million property or greater. That's the incentive, to buy more and more real estate, and you can defer all that tax for the rest of your life. And if you pass away, your heirs get a step up in cost basis. You can sell that property at that new basis, at that new value, and all that tax is forgiven. It's a beautiful concept, and again, it's the most powerful way to build wealth in real estate. And the Delaware Statutory Trust, the DST, is a passive 1031 exchange legal structure that was approved in 2004 by the IRS and the SEC. And the Delaware Statutory Trust is really just another way of owning real estate, right? You can own real estate in your own name, a joint venture, an LLC. You can buy shares of a real estate investment trust that's publicly traded or privately held and get access to a big pool of real estate where you're a passive shareholder. A DST is very similar to a real estate investment trust in the sense that when you're buying into a DST, you're buying into hundreds of millions of dollars of institutional investment income producing real estate. And typically DST companies are institutional investment firms that are managing billions of dollars. They're doing business with pension funds, insurance companies, mutual funds. The biggest of the biggest investors in the world are doing business with these companies. And so for investors that are over 55 years old, right, baby boomers, and they're tired of managing real estate, what do? They either sit on their property for the rest of their life and essentially, I'm just going to hold on to this until I die, right? And maybe that property is earning 1 to 3%, or it's not really increasing the quality of their life, because managing property is like a job for a lot of investors, right? If you're in retirement and you're managing property, that's not the highest quality of life for a lot of investors, right? So the DST, this passive 1031 exchange investment strategy, enables aging landlords to retire and to sell their investment property and exchange into more of a passively held, professionally managed portfolio of real estate, and it's all passive. And since 2004, you've seen baby boomers aging into retirement, right? That's really why DSTs were created in 2004, is because that was the first wave of baby boomers entering into retirement that wants to continue the 1031 exchange. They maybe have done it 10 times, but they don't want to buy something else. They don't want to have to manage another property, nor the low inventory environment that we're in today. Do you even want to buy something right now? Locally, probably not, especially if you're looking for cash flow. It's a highly appreciated real estate market, so there's a ton of capital gain just sitting in property today, which is essentially trapped equity. It's underperforming equity just sitting there. So you might be worth $5 million, but your $3.5 million of investment property is not really earning you that much money. You're just sitting there, and you're in your 60s and 70s, and you're tired of managing property. So the Delaware Statutory Trust is only available through a financial advisor like myself. You can't get it through a CPA, you can't get it through a real estate agent, through a title agent, you can't get it through a real estate attorney. You have to go through an SEC regulated advisor like myself. And so to kind of go over really the structure of the DST, it's just a legal trust. And inside of this trust are property or properties that might be $150 million apartment building. And in the Southeast, it could be self-storage facilities. It can be single-family rental home communities in the Southeast. It can be Amazon warehouses, packaging, fulfillment centers with a 30-year lease that's just paying a distribution every month from the rental income. Right? It can be senior housing. Right? It can be where a lot of baby boomers go to live for the next 10 years until they pass away. Memory cares, senior living facilities. It can be student housing. Institutional, well-located asset classes that are being managed like a corporation, essentially. And investors can identify the property or properties in this DST trust that satisfies the like-kind investment property, approval of the IRS and the SEC. So rather than buying your own property, you can diversify and invest in DSTs and literally have access to hundreds of millions of dollars of investment property, all passive, all producing monthly income. And so the DST companies that are typically managing these properties, these are all regulated companies. These are not just random mom and pop investment companies. These are some of which are publicly traded, some of which have been around for over 50 years. And before becoming a financial advisor, I actually worked directly for these institutional real estate companies that are structuring the DST around these properties. I've raised money personally in every asset class that you could think of. My job before becoming an advisor was to educate advisors on how this can help their clients. So I've been on the other side of the table for years. So I've got nothing but really good experience, and I educate investors every day all over the country on this strategy, and I educate real estate agents every day on this strategy. And when the DST is communicated correctly, and I help agents, I get on the phone every day with agents and their clients. Because as a real estate agent, you don't need to memorize this strategy and become an expert. It's just knowing which clients might be most interested in this. And 9 times out of 10, a client that's over 60 years old that hears about this, they're gonna contemplate selling. And that's a listing that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten. And I have so many agents that I partnered up with that I've been trying to get people to sell their properties for years. But you can only try to convince them with so many strategies out there that, quite frankly, we're kind of potentially entering into a recession. Interest rates are going up. People are nervous. But if they knew that they could exchange into a $150 million apartment complex in Raleigh, North Carolina, that's cash flowing 4.5% a year, tax sheltered, and Apple is building a $2.5 billion campus 3 miles down the street that's going to create 6,000 jobs, they may want to sell so they can get access to something like that. Right? The Southeast United States are where people are moving to, people are migrating to, there's population growth, there's job growth, taxes are more favorable. Big Fortune 500 companies are moving their headquarters to the Southeast right now. There's millions of people leaving California every year. They're leaving New York, they're leaving DC, they're leaving Boston, they're leaving Chicago, and they're moving to the Southeast where the quality of life is a little bit more favorable. Millennials are moving there because it's more affordable, and baby boomers are moving there to retire. And there's certain real estate strategies that are benefiting from all this demographic shift. Quite frankly, that's also recession resistant. During 2007, 2008, during the housing crash, institutional apartments benefited more than any asset class. Self-storage benefited more than any asset class. Single-family rental homes benefited more than any other asset class, right? Amazon fulfillment centers were unimpacted. E-commerce, anytime you buy a good and service, there's a last mile distribution center that's sending that package to your house that has a 25, 30-year lease. So if you're long e-commerce and Amazon, I'd rather own their warehouse than potentially own their stock that's going up and down every single day. So this is really institutional quality real estate that investors will never hear about it unless it comes from an agent that's willing to learn about other ways to bring value to their clients. And again, right now in this low inventory environment, appreciated real estate market, every day 10,000 people are turning 65. It's an aging population. The DST is solving a lot of problems right now for these aging investors of real estate. And I don't make any money until agents get more listings, right? My job is to help, there's 85 DST operators out there. I don't work for a DST company. I'm a financial advisor. I'm not married to any one company. My job is to help create a personalized DST portfolio where if someone's selling $1 million of real estate, all $1 million has to go into invest in real estate. But in a DST, you might be able to invest into 4 different DSTs. As long as all $1 million is going into investment property, $250,000 can go into a self-storage facility in Daytona Beach, Florida. Another $250,000 can go into an Amazon warehouse in Michigan. Another $250,000 can go into a student housing project outside of Auburn. Another $250,000 can go into an apartment building in Raleigh. You can really create this diversified portfolio, and that's my job. That's my job, is I'm the client's advisor. And again, I don't make any money until agents get more listings. So my job is to help educate you guys and get in front of the right investors and get me on the phone. Whether someone's selling $1 million or someone's selling 25 million of real estate. I have brokers, commercial and residential, that have got me on the phone, and there's a listing that comes from that couple months of conversations. And that's a commission that agent wouldn't have gotten if it weren't for me helping them with this process and educating their investors on a strategy that they've never heard of before. No agents are doing this. They're not doing it. And who knows what's gonna happen in the next few years. So I know you guys are trying to get creative on trying to find new ways to get listings. This is that way. This solves a lot of issues and it creates a lot of value. And if you find that one client that likes this, they're gonna tell all their friends at the country club. They're gonna tell all their rich neighbors, all their rich friends. Guess what I did? Who'd you hear it from? My real estate agent, right? Most agents aren't even willing to learn about new ways to do this. So that's really what I do in a nutshell, is I help investors understand their 1031 exchange options. I help develop personalized DST portfolios. And there's really 3 ways this can benefit your business. First way is the obvious. It'll get you more listings within your older clients that want to retire from actively managed real estate. This is their retirement strategy. The second way is if you have an investor that's doing a 1031 exchange, right? They have $1 million to play with, right? It's equal or greater value. All $1 million has to go into like kind of investment property. It doesn't have to be apartment for apartment or single family rental home for single family rental home. It just has to be investment property to investment property. And what if as their agent, you found a great property for $800,000? That's below that value. There's $200,000 that still needs to be identified. That $200,000 can go into a DST, and the $800,000 goes into that actively managed property that you help find for them. So you can be active and passive. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And that's really valuable and gives you more leverage and more confidence to say, hey, let me help you find a property, and you don't have to be under the 45-day window to find the perfect property, right? Because you've got 45 days. If someone decides to do a 1031 exchange, you have 45 days upon closing to identify another like-kind property. It's a month and a half. That's not a long time. And I can't tell you how many times agents within the 45-day window can't find the right property, and it's less than what they got out of. And it's like, hey, Mr. Client, you owe taxes on $200,000. Sorry, you'll never have to have that conversation again, right? The third way this could help, again, is within the 45-day window, so many things can go wrong. Lender backs out, the buyer backs out, something happens, interest rates go up, someone gets spooked, right? And then you got to make that call. Hey, we lost the deal. You owe $500,000 in taxes. The DST can always be identified as a backup option, because when you're identifying replacement property, you can identify 3 different addresses and just choose one of those options or all those options, right? So the DST can really be a nice tool to save an exchange within the 45-day window, it can be a backup option, it can be the leftover equity piece, and also can help you get more listings within your older clients that when hearing about it, they may consider selling to get out of active management. And so this white paper I gave you guys, it goes over everything there is to know. So the white paper I gave you guys, it goes over the 1031 exchange process. It also goes over the DST. It also goes over the 8 different scenarios that the DST can be of value for investors. We don't need to get into it today. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. But again, if someone's selling $1 million property or whatever it is, if they have debt on that property, they got to pay that off. So if they're selling $1 million asset and they have $250,000 of debt, they have to sell it, pay off that $250,000, and then go buy another $1 million property and make sure that $250,000 gets replaced somehow. And in this increasing interest rate environment, a lot of people don't want to have to go to a bank and negotiate a $250,000 loan on an investment property at today's rates. And the beautiful thing about the DST is, for example, ABC DST company might buy a $100 million property. $50 million is cash, right, that they use to purchase. $50 million might be a loan from JP Morgan at 4%, 10 years interest only. So it's a 50% loan to value, right? 50-50. If someone invests in that DST, they're getting a fractional equity interest in the property, but they're also assuming the debt. So if someone needs to replace debt, you can replace that debt automatically in the DST because there's debt already built in and prepackaged in the property. So you can assume that $250,000 loan, all non-recourse. There's no credit background check, there's no paperwork, there's no processing, there's no servicing. It's all on the sponsor, on the DST company itself. And you're essentially getting an institutional loan that's been negotiated by a $10 billion company. And that's a loan that you can't get on your own, right? And so if someone's complaining about, I don't want to sell, why? Because I got a mortgage that I got to replace, I can solve that for you. So there's 8 scenarios in that white paper that talks about this, right? If someone's asset's fully depreciated, fully depreciated, that's a big reason why someone wants to sell, is they've owned property for 30 years and they've depreciated it all the way through. And when someone's depreciated their asset, all the rental income is fully taxable. There's nothing to defer. You can get that new depreciation schedule by investing in a DST that has debt, where you can buy more real estate, right? If someone's got zero basis, right, that income's fully taxable, right? They have nothing to depreciate every year. So that $1 million and that basis at zero carries forward, unless you buy a property that's more than $1 million. Typically you got to take out a loan, and that basis will go up by that difference above the $1 million. And that's that new basis that you can depreciate. You can get that done automatically in the DST. So a lot of investors will sell and get into a DST that has debt, assume that debt. And if a DST's got 50% loan to value, and you've got $1 million, that $1 million is actually buying you $2 million worth of real estate. So now your basis is at $1 million. And that's a new, fresh schedule of depreciation. There's so many different angles of attack depending on what the investor's needs are. If they're complaining about their health, about their retirement, about whatever it is, legacy planning, the DST solves that, right? Because if someone owns a DST and they pass away, it's way easier for the estate to take over a DST ownership than taking over a bunch of actively managed property where maybe their heirs might be teenagers. They might be living in another state. They may not even want to manage real estate anymore. And so as the advisor, I help with that estate planning and that legacy planning, right? Someone's complaining about their debt. They're complaining about their property underperforming. Whatever it is, there's so many different ways that this DST can solve their problem, and most importantly, get you guys a listing and get you guys paid and bring more value to your clients.